Hi everyone, Kathy Beltran with Sacred Dance with Trance. I'm super excited to have, once again, fellow member, author, and trance medium, Robert Goodwin. Robert is amazing. If you haven't checked out his first interview where he shares his understanding of trance, as well as more information about White Feather, his guide, definitely check that out. That's on YouTube, and it came out in September. Robert also has a podcast that is amazing that you definitely need to subscribe to. That can be found on buzzsprout.com. He shares it also on Stitcher and Apple iTunes. So definitely check out his podcast. He has a beautiful website you need to check out. That's called whitefeather.org.uk. So much information he shares and all of the links connecting to all the other things that he does. Robert is also a fabulous author, and I'm going to show you one book, and due to the daylight, you're not going to be able to see it very well. There it is. So this is In the Presence of White Feather, Conversations with the Spirit Teacher. But Rob also has 8 books out there, 6 books you can find, and this is with White Feather on Amazon. So all of them, you can find them easily on Amazon. And through his website, you can find the rest of the books that he has, but 8 books out there. So everybody, welcome back, Robert Goodwin.
Hi, Kathy. Hi, everyone. Thanks for that very in-depth introduction. It's great to speak to you again. I think was it October last time we spoke,
September,
yeah, time flies, yeah. I thoroughly enjoyed that, and I have been looking at some of the interviews that you've done with all these wonderful people over the last few months, and I think you're doing a wonderful job, by the way, and you really are gathering together quite a body of evidence from and information from well-respected and people. And I don't know anywhere else on the planet where you've got all these wonderful people coming together and offering this advice and this knowledge. I think I said to you last time, it should maybe be put into a book at some point. Maybe that'll happen, I don't know. But I think you're doing a great job. So it's wonderful to be able to speak to you again.
Thank you so much. And man, I am so excited about that all these people are coming together. It's like a library that's going to be there for everybody. So
absolutely.
Thank you for doing that and coming on here again. We're going to do things a little bit different. I know I told you guys in the group that, I felt guided to include some interviews, talking about our spiritual life, our spirituality. It's like, and when I get that feeling from my team, I have to listen. And so that's why I have Mr. Goodwin here, because I know that he is just incredibly knowledgeable, and the books that he has. So I'm super grateful to be able to talk with you more about the spirituality. What is spirituality, Rob? People say, well, it's this or that. What is your interpretation?
Yeah, I guess everybody's got their own sort of take on it, but I was thinking about this very question today, and I guess ultimately the ultimate definition, if you like, of spirituality is love, because when you act from love, all things flow from love. Tolerance, compassion, kindliness, gentleness, understanding, all of those things flow from love. And I think anyone that can act genuinely from love is acting selflessly and is a giver. And I think when the problems arise, when we move away from love, if you think of love as being at the center of everything, certainly at the center of our being, when we move away from that or start to move away from that, that's when the mind kicks in and all kinds of negativity can start to creep in, and we become maybe self-centered or egotistical, or even worse, angry or bitter or depressed, all of these emotions and all these thoughts that creep in. And I think that's where a lack of spirituality becomes evident, and where people aren't acting from their higher self or from their center. So I think love is the ultimate definition, but I came up with a nice one. Well, I don't know whether I came up with it or whether it was given to me. And it was because I know the mind, and some of the people that are watching this, the mind in particular likes to have structure, and it likes its sort of, equations and things like that. And quite a nice little equation that appealed to me was the word spirituality equals service over self-inquiry. Now, service, we've already sort of touched on that, giving to others, helping others, genuinely wanting to help others, as you are doing with these wonderful interviews, giving out in service. That is really a big part of spirituality. But self-inquiry and the desire to know oneself, what one is, not necessarily as an individual, but what one is in essence, that we're all part of this vast whole, if you like, we're all connected. That is a vital part of spirituality as well, because I think so many people, particularly those who are a little bit lost, if we could say that, on the pathway, don't really know what they're about. They don't know why they're here. They don't know what their purpose is in life. Perhaps they're not bothered, or their mind has got sidetracked or sucked into material things, and they get bogged down, like we all do from time to time. None of us are perfect. But we get bogged down by work and relationships and just trying to survive down here. And we either don't bother or don't have any desire to inquire about the nature of life and the nature of being. And I think that's such an important thing. That with service, I think, are the two most crucial things. Service covers a whole range of aspects from the higher self that we've already mentioned. But if you can ally that with self-inquiry and wanting to know the purpose of life and the purpose of your own being, I think you've got the perfect blend there. And there's just one other thing that I came across I don't believe in accidents, and I don't think you do. I think things are meant for a purpose. I just came across this little thing and I wrote it down on Facebook, of all things, yesterday. And I thought it was really nice, and I thought I'd share this with everyone.
Please.
It said there are 4 gatekeepers to the realm of freedom. The first is Santi, S-A-N-T-I. These are Sanskrit words, Santi, which is self-control or quietness of mind. Self-control or quietness of mind. The second is Vichara or Vichara, which is the spirit of inquiry, which I've already mentioned, The third one is Santosha, which is contentment. And the fourth one is Satsanga, which is good company. So perhaps if we can try and reach one or more of those states or embrace one or more of those principles, then the others will follow. And we're on the pathway, if you want to call it that, the pathway of living a spiritual life and being a spiritual person.
Actually, I love that you found that one. It's actually quite beautiful. And I hope have you shared that on your...
I haven't, no. It was another guy that I link with. I can't think of his surname, a guy called Rob, actually, another Rob in Australia. And he posts a lot of that sort of thing. That was a post by, in fact, I've still got it here on my phone. That was a post by Yoga Vasistha, which is Vasistha. So, as I say, there's a lot of Sanskrit aspect to that. So people might want to look that up.
Oh yeah, definitely. I'll definitely make sure to put that. I get a lot of people asking me, they know that I'm going to do a couple interviews on the spirituality on this. And people ask me, well, what do you mean when you say no? yourself? How do I know myself? What do I do? Does meditation help me with that? Do I have to understand what makes me tick to get to a better state of allowing or their experience with relationship? I mean, there's so many questions involved me, but really they want to know, how can I do that? How can I get to know myself better?
Yeah. I mean, one of White Feather's quotes that he very often says, particularly in a public setting, is that there are many paths that lead to one place. And I guess there's many approaches that we can take. Some people go down the meditation path. Others, they like to read and think, observe, watch the behaviors of others, look at the world, look at nature. There's answers everywhere you look, really. And I guess it depends which approach appeals to you or appeals to the mind. But I've found over the years that, and this may surprise one or two people, that really we don't need to add anything to ourselves. If you believe, or if you understand the nature of life, that everything is connected, that everything is one, that we're all part of one whole, one consciousness, then it follows, I think, that consciousness is perfection. It's already perfect. And so why would we need to add anything to ourselves? The only reason people want to add things is because the mind wants things to be added. The mind likes to collect things. It likes to collect rewards. It likes to collect information because it makes it feel as though it's achieved something. And because the mind thinks in this linear fashion, and because we're so conditioned from a very young age that, we have to go to school, we have to learn these things. And don't get me wrong, there's certain things like we have to learn in life in order to live down here. But we're so conditioned into thinking, we've got to go through school, and we go to high school, and we go to university, and we get this degree and that degree. And, we like to have these rewards and these letters after our name, and we like to feel that we've achieved something. But really, when it comes to real spiritual knowledge and awareness of self and of the nature of life, we don't have to add anything. Rather, it is the opposite. It's peeling away, if you like, all these layers that we've built around us and finding what's already there at the very center of our being. I remember White Feather saying once, or more than once, he said, "I can't teach you anything. I can only help you remember what you've forgotten." And I think that's a very profound thing to say, because we've all got this knowledge, and people say, well, I haven't got this knowledge, I haven't got this awareness, where is it? And it's not something that you have to acquire over time. People tend to put this into the context of linear time where, I'll achieve it. I haven't got it yet, but I'm getting there. I'll get it next year, or maybe the year after. I'm going to get it there because I'm working towards it. And it's always in the future. It's always in the future. And they look at someone else and, well, he's got it, she's got it. I want what they've got, but I haven't quite got there yet. And they put this excuse as to why they haven't quite got there. It's always set in the future. Well, there is no future. Everything's in the now. There is no past and future are only concepts of the mind. There's only the now, the eternal now. So the answers are in the now, and we haven't got to add anything to ourselves. All we need to do is to just be still, be quiet, go beyond the mind if we can, still the mind, because we've got this we've got this parrot on our shoulder, haven't we, that keeps chattering away all the time. You've got it, I've got it.
Got it.
Everyone's got it, and it's always chattering away. Well, you can't do this, or you need to do that, or it wants your attention, and that's the mind. The mind is like continually churning out this internal chatter, and we have to still that, or at least try and go beyond it, switch it off for a little while. And it's like, I always liken it to, if you like, a stone that's sort of dropped, that goes beyond this choppy surface, down into the depths, right down into the stillness, just rests at the bottom, if you like, and that's where the answers lie. That's where the real self is. Don't need to add anything to ourselves. We just need to recognize what is already there. I'm not saying that meditation or reading books or going to lectures or watching videos or anything like that is wrong. Nothing wrong with that. That's fine, you know, because it's okay to add knowledge, but it's not the prerequisite for attaining enlightenment and awareness of self.
Wow.
That's my view.
Well, I love it. You know what? Everything you mentioned, meditation, reading books, observing people, watching, everything that you said, I've done all of it. And what I think it did for me, and I think this was years, this is just years, you know, you don't just come to know yourself. I mean, sometimes, you know, to me, it was through all these different things that I did. It actually, and you mentioned the layers, because, and then the parrot, to me, there was so much talking. And I want to say, when you say the layers, peeling back the layers, which meant the judgments, the negative thinking, the experiences that you were actually creating to get you to see, really, to remember who you are. Because I absolutely believe what you said. It is about love. It is about remembering who you are.
Yeah, yeah.
But some people find it so hard when, you know, they have all that chatter, or, you know, all these beliefs about themselves and how they should interact with other people based on fear. Really, it's fear, because they're, you know, the resentment, the unforgiving. And when you said that everything should be about love, it's like, you can feel when you're in love, when you have that love in your heart. And then when you have that anger, it's a completely different thing. And if you lead your life by the anger, the resentment and everything, to me, you're just creating more of that, and you're just out of complete vibration to love.
Absolutely.
So would you recommend, do you feel like the layers that we have to peel away, or not peel away, I think they naturally will come? It's really about healing yourself and your thoughts and your beliefs about what you're perceiving?
In one sense, yeah. But in another sense, you don't need to be healed, because you're not damaged. No one is damaged. No one is really at the essence, at the core of what you are. You are perfect. So there is no healing needed. There's nothing needs to be added. There's nothing needs to be removed at that level of being, because you are already blissfully happy, content, at peace, all-knowing, infinite awareness in awareness of itself. And it's only when let me put it this way. If you think of infinite awareness as being the ocean, for argument's sake, that ocean is continually moving and flowing, but at the very depths, it's quite still and deep and calm. On the surface, it breaks into waves. Waves come and go, and you know, those waves, if you like, could be likened, or the surface could be likened to the mind. And the mind is very seldom, if ever, still. It's always moving, it's always seeking, it's always chattering, it's always talking. So if there's any healing that needs to be done, it's at the level of mind and emotion. That's where any healing needs to be done. But deep down, there's no healing needed, because there's nothing to be healed. There's no work to be done. There's nothing to be sought after. There's nothing to be acquired. We only have to know that which we are. And you touched upon a thing about knowing yourself and understanding yourself. And that raises a whole question, really, of what is self? What when we say I've got to know myself, do we mean Kathy Beltran? Do we mean Robert Goodwin? Is that the self, or is that just a temporary form or state of being that has arisen that we think of as self? I don't think of Robert Goodwin as myself. I used to, and I guess many people think like that. They look in the mirror, they see their body, their persona, their label in life, their social status, and so on, and they think, well, this is who I am, this is what I am, this is my lot in life, and they try and work with that, and they try and make that fit, and try and be happy being that person or that perceived person. Well, happiness will never be found, and you will never know your real self if you are focused through the mind, through the lens of the mind, onto that vehicle that you see in the mirror. That isn't you. And that's where people will always fail. They may find temporary happiness, and we both mentioned love. And I think love is a very beautiful word, very powerful word, but a very overused word, because people say, well, I've found my true love, I've found my other half, I've found my soulmate, and we've all been there. I'm happy. I found happiness. I know who I am. I found my love, true love. But as wonderful as that might be, at some point that love will either fade, or it will change, or there will be some discontent arise within the mind, because it isn't the answer. You will not find the answer in another person or in a relationship or a life situation down here on earth. You will only find the answer by going within and loving yourself as infinite awareness. That is where the real love is. That's what we need to find. So when we talk about self, we need to go beyond this personality vehicle, beyond this male, female, whatever, this vehicle that we have. We need to go beyond and much deeper into the depths, if you like, of the ocean. As I said, like a stone going down to the bottom. That's where we'll find the answer.
I think that's beautiful.
Yeah.
I think that whatever I'm going through or whatever I'm experiencing that is causing some challenges in my life, and if I keep that one thought that I am connected to the all, and I stay in that vibration, I stay in that beautiful way of believing or remembering, then what I'm experiencing no longer has that, it's taken down completely. And my emotional reaction to it has taken itself down, and I can deal with that. But if I don't come from that place, then I'm responding with, anger and fear.
Yeah.
Pretty much it's fear, because it's fear of, something. And so I think that's what a lot of, questions that I get asked. I mean, how do you stay that way? How do you stay and be spiritual minded when you're faced with all these things coming at you, the phone call that, brings bad news, or the lack of abundance, there's just so many different things. I'm like, wow, I don't know if I can completely talk about that. I'm gonna need a lot of people's help with that one,
Yeah.
But how do you stay in that beautiful state of mind and of remembering?
I think the word here perhaps is remaining present. And by remaining present, I mean being present in this moment. I've already sort of touched on, we've already sort of mentioned about things being future paced, you know, set in the future or in the past. And that's where the mind tends to go. Now, the mind will, as I've said, will always comment. It will always comment, whether you want it to or not. It will always comment on your current situation. And such is the nature of the mind. It is usually a negative comment based out of conditioning by fear. You're conditioned to be fearful. Fear in itself isn't a totally bad thing. You've got to have some fear, because if you were totally fearless, particularly as a young child, then, you know, you'd walk out under a bus, you'd walk out, you know, you'd walk off the edge of a cliff. You've got to have something that warns you, and fear is very good at doing that. But when we sort of get conditioned, and we very much in this modern age are conditioned to be fearful of one thing or another, then the mind picks up on that. And whenever it comments on any condition that any situation that you have, it is 99% certain that it will comment in a negative way. And it will usually say to you, your self-talk, well, if you do this, then this is going to happen. Tomorrow, this will happen. And to sort of substantiate that, it will say, it will go in the past. Well, you remember what happened last week? You remember what happened years ago when you split up with so-and-so and all this happened? And it'll draw on that perception of things that apparently happened in the past, and it will then set that into the future as a fearful thing. Now, where is the past? Where is the future? You cannot step into the past. The past is only a sense of a memory, if you like. But where is that? It's in this present moment. It's in this in the now. And where is the future? There isn't a future. It's happening now. And even tomorrow will be in the now. Next week, next year will still be in the now. So you can only address it in the now, in this present moment. And the thing is, we lose presence, we lose control, if you like, by allowing our mind to sort of dictate to us by this constant chatter, and we lose this sense of any sense of peace or contentment or happiness is gone, because the mind takes it. The mind's a thief. It comes in through the back door, and it comes into our house, and it takes our peace away. And that's what we've got to be mindful of. Now, you said, well, how do we deal with this? How do we stop this happening? You cannot constantly, totally, always remain in a blissful state. Not even the greatest sage, the greatest avatar, the greatest spiritual person can do that. There's always going to be things that sort of pull you. But the first thing is to recognize that the mind is trying to do that. If you don't recognize it, then you've lost your presence. You've lost your sense of presence. The moment you recognize it, you're present again. And the real you is sort of stepping forward and say, hang on a minute, the mind's telling you this. And straight away, there's a separation between the real you and the sort of false you, the you that is based upon the ego and the mind-based self. And when that separation occurs, the real you, the infinite awareness, this pure awareness in awareness of itself, can see this little imposter. And that's where then you can come back to this center. You're drawn back into this center of peace. And you know, what's that old saying? Is it Rudyard Kipling or someone that said that, if you can keep your head whilst all about you are losing theirs, you'll be a man, my son. And what he meant by that was, if you can retain this sense of control in the present moment while all the others around you are going into this state of mind, then you will indeed have achieved something. You will know yourself. And I think that's the problem, because, you know, we live in a mind-based world, don't we? You know, Kathy, everything is directed to stimulation of the mind and therefore the body and the emotions. And, you know, this is getting worse and more intense by the day. And, I mean, as wonderful as these interviews are, that go on Facebook and YouTube and things like that, I will say that they are worth watching, because they average an hour or hour and a half. Facebook itself, as wonderful as it is as a tool, it gives information in little snippets, and people, the mind the attention span, if you like, seems to be condensed down into this little snippet of information. And sometimes, you know, people will say they like something, and they haven't even read it, they haven't even looked at the video, they automatically just tick it, you know, I like it, because their attention span has been squashed down and they don't realize it. And when it comes to, you know, really thinking about things, or meditating, or being quiet, or being centered in the moment, all the things we're talking about, they find it difficult because the mind isn't being stimulated. Well, we don't want the mind to be stimulated. We want the mind to be stilled, to be quietened down, so that the real self, infinite consciousness, can step forward and express itself. Does that make sense?
That absolutely makes sense. And I completely understand that, because if my head's in the past and in the future, I can't be present. I'm just too worried about this or that. And when I realize that I'm in the present, then all of that and what I'm facing just drops. It's like, okay, this is easy. You know, stop being in, you know, in the future of what if this is going to happen, or this is going to happen, or, oh my God, that happened. We can't have that happen anymore. So yeah, I totally get that. And,
that's right.
And the way you described being able to be calm when everything else around you, or everyone else around you, is going icy crazy. Yeah. That's a hard one. That is a hard one.
It is a hard one. No one's saying it's easy, but at one level it is easy. It's the easiest thing in the world. It's just that the mind makes it difficult, you know. You know, there's an add-on to this, if you like. I don't know if you've, I'll share this with you. Okay. Some of your viewers, you might have noticed this yourself. Sometimes you'll glance at the clock, the digital clock, and it'll say 11:11 or 21:21 or 17:17. Mm-hmm. The number of people who say to me that they have this experience, I have it a lot every day, without kidding. Every day I just glance at, I could be driving, I could be, you know, lying in bed, I just glance at the clock and the digits are the same. Now, why is that?
Why is that?
Why is that? And I question, go on.
No, I wonder why it happens too. I haven't the same experience.
Yeah, and you'll find, and I haven't done research on this, so, you know, somebody could shoot me down on this. I think, and I'll tell you why I think this, that spiritual people or psychic people are more prone to seeing these combinations. Now, I'll tell you why I think this is. There's a wonderful institute in the USA called the Institute of HeartMath. Have you heard of them?
No.
Okay, you might want to Google the Institute of HeartMath. And they've done a lot of wonderful research about the energies that are produced from the heart. Now, mind and consciousness is throughout the body. The body is an aspect of consciousness anyway. But we don't just think from our head, from our brain. We also think from our heart. And every organ in the body has a contribution to make to the overall picture, because you've probably heard the saying, when you're angry, you're venting your spleen. You may have heard that. You know, if you're jealous, you know, it can affect your liver.
Oh, yes.
You know,
Yes.
when you're upset, emotional, we've all experienced this. You have an upset stomach,
Mm-hmm.
or you have pain in that area. This is the body's way of communicating. Now, the heart and the HeartMath, the Institute of HeartMath, have found that the heart radiates an energy several meters beyond the body. Several meters. Now, spiritual people, enlightened people, psychics and so on, generally emit a more coherent energy, a more coherent light. Now, by coherent, I mean regular. If you think of a line on a graph on a hospital monitor, a regular wave of coherent energy. Where you get incoherent energy or incoherent light, it's all over the place. Jumbled, aggressive, angry. Coherent people radiate a coherent energy from their heart, several meters beyond their body. And I think that when we tune into these numbers that we see that are the same, the 1111, it's because we are coherent, and that is coherent. It's not 1107, it's 1111, it's 2121, it's coherent. And our coherent energy is synchronizing with that coherent energy. So we see it, we notice it more often. Now, this brings us back to the whole point, if you like, of things that we're discussing here about spirituality. If you've ever been, Kathy, in the presence of a highly enlightened person, a highly spiritual person, whether it's in a situation like this, even because we are connecting now, we're connected energetically, even though I'm in the UK and you're in the USA, we're still connected because there's no real space between us. We could be in the same room. But if you've ever been in the physical presence of a highly spiritual person, you would know it. You would know it immediately without them speaking, because their energy, their peace, their whole being exudes this coherent energy, and you would sense it. And the more sensitive you are, the more that you would pick up on it. They'd only have to walk into the room and you would sense it, and you would be so enraptured by them peacefully, in a peaceful way. And you've probably heard the saying, you know, some people have a animal magnetism or a magnetic energy, you know, and that's what it is. And people pick up on that. And some people can, well, we're going into the realms now of you know, manipulating matter and controlling matter, and, you know, to the extremes, you know, of walking through solid walls and all that, which we can go into if you wanted to. But what I'm saying is these people, these individuals have this great power. And I use the word power not in a violent way, but in a peaceful, gentle, loving way. They have this wonderful power. And that is basically what we all have. We all have that, but in many of us, it's unrecognized. We're so caught up in mind that we haven't realized it, but it's there for all of us.
I can totally relate to that. Like, you know, while you're talking, I'm trying to think, have I actually been with somebody that radiated that beautiful energy? I'm still thinking on that.
Well, you know, years ago, I worked in printing. And there was a guy that came in and he wanted a job doing. I'd never met this guy before. My friend who I worked with, my colleague on the shop floor, he said, this chap's coming in, he said, and he wants this print job doing. He said, he doesn't want to pay a lot for it. He said, but he wants it doing really quickly. And he said, he's a lovely man. He said, he's a member of the church, the Orthodox church, actually. And I thought, well, you know, he's another customer. He'll have to wait his turn, sort of thing. You know, there's other people paying a lot more money for work. You know, who's this guy? Anyway, he walked in, and within a couple of minutes of talking to him, he got me eating out of his hand. You know, I'd have done anything for the guy, you know. And we ended up doing this print job for him, you know, for next to nothing. We virtually, you know, paid him to do it, really, within a couple of days. But he got such a way with him, so persuasive, not in a salesman sort of way, not in a flashy way. Just he exuded this. You just wanted to help him. You just wanted to give to the guy. You could tell that he was a person that gave. He gave out to others. He helped others, and you just wanted to help him because he. I think the word I'm looking for here is goodness. He radiated goodness, and if that's another word that we can add to spirituality, then I think we should, because I think spiritual people radiate goodness, and this guy certainly did. And if only there were more people like that in the world, what a different place it would be.
You know what? Now that I'm thinking here, I have come across people where you could feel what you said, goodness. You just felt it. You couldn't understand it. And even with people I connect with online, I can feel that, even though we're not here together. But I will tell you one story really quick of a homeless person. Maybe I was in the store checking out, and somebody in front of me, all of a sudden I started noticing they were like making fun of somebody in front of them, and I couldn't understand it. And then I realized who it was. It was just a homeless person wanting a grocery bag. When I went outside, and I could feel such beautiful energy from this person. And he didn't care what all the people were saying about him being in line, maybe because he's, you know, there's a smell. But sometimes I think even the people that you would not even give a second look at, the ones they are teaching the most beautiful lesson, they could be the ones that you would feel that beautiful energy if you were just present.
That's right.
In the moment.
That's right.
And so when I looked at those people, you know, going in such, you know, just behaving so badly, I couldn't believe it, that it was a beautiful moment for them to have a clearer understanding of all being connected, no matter what's going on with each individual. But yeah, that was a great question for me to think on.
That's lovely. You know, I that sort of brings to mind, you know, that you know the old saying, don't judge a book by its cover. And we sort of do that, don't we? We don't only do that with people, we do it with situations. And that's another occasion when the mind takes over. A few years ago, I did a course, well, going back more than a few years now, and I qualified as a hypnotherapist. And this is nothing to do with the trance mediumship. I'll emphasize that. But I was interested in the mind, and I went on several courses, and I qualified. And one of the stories a trainer told us, which I thought was a lovely one, which sort of comes to mind here, about not prejudging anything. And he told a story. It's only a quick story, really. He sort of painted a picture of an elderly lady, an old lady walking up the street, carrying these two heavy bags of shopping. And if you can imagine, you're standing at the top of the street, looking down the high street, and in the distance, your eye picks out this little short woman with these two heavy bags, and she's walking towards you, walking towards the camera, if you like, and you're watching her. And then behind her, you happen to see a young man, and he sees this old lady, and he starts to run towards her from behind. And you straight away you're thinking, my God, he's going to pinch, he's going to steal her bags, he's going to, you know. And he comes behind her and he pushes her over. She falls to the floor. And you think, what has he done? This poor old lady, what has he done? He's put, you know. And then out of your view, from behind you, comes this out of control lorry, and it mounts the pavement, and it goes down the pavement. And had he not pushed the lady out of the way, it would have killed her. Wow, yeah. So when you see the whole picture, you see that he was actually acting in the right way. He saved her life. But because we were only seeing that little snapshot, the mind jumps to all these conclusions, and we put 2 and 2 together and get 5. Yeah. You know, and it sort of tied in with your story there. And yeah, I mean, the other thing as well, you know, which I hope you don't mind me just sort of talking like this, but
we're having a great conversation here.
The other thing that you know, I said about the mind comments on things, you know, and this internal self-talk. Well, it also, and we're all guilty of this, I think, we have to comment, or we have to jump in and say something. And I sometimes catch myself doing this. And quite a few months ago now, I thought, I've got to make an effort here to stop doing this, because, you know, you jump in and you make a comment on someone or some situation without really thinking about it. And you think afterwards, why did I say that? Why didn't I just say nothing? Why didn't I step back? And as I say, none of us are perfect, are we? And I think that's for me, if you like, becoming present. What I talked about earlier, and recognizing that, yeah, sometimes my mind jumps in and makes a judgment or comments on something, when really would have been better to say nothing, and maybe do nothing. Sometimes it's better to do nothing. Sometimes you have to act, you have to step in. Yeah, sometimes you have to, particularly if someone's in danger or whatever. But equally, there's a time to be silent, a time to be still. And I think if we can be discerning enough to do that, then that's another aspect, that's another tick box, if you like, in the, you know, spirituality.
I think if I look and I think just about that, I remember being younger and feeling like I had to be the one that saves the day, really speaks for another if they're in danger or they're being mistreated verbally, even that. And then there came a point where I realized, wait a minute, you know, I can only help someone so much. Danger, yes, absolutely. But in situations that they have repetitive patterns of not defending themselves, or there just came a point where I felt like I can only help someone so much.
Yeah.
Help themselves, and I can't enable somebody to be dependent on me to fix things for them. And so with the commenting, if I see that, there came a point where I said, wait a minute, I don't need to comment on everything.
Yeah, that's it.
And if I felt like I needed to speak my truth because truth was said about me, or I felt like I needed to clarify that, then I would. But you don't always have to comment. And that's why, like, even in the group, I think there's been a lot of judging going around, or that's what I'm not used to. I'm really not used to. And, you know, I just ask everybody to, you know, yes, you have your opinion. And that's beautiful to share, but you can still share that with choosing, you know, words carefully without offending somebody, or, you know what I mean? It's good to have the duality of someone sharing their experience and their understanding, because you're going to learn from both.
Yeah.
But you can still do it perfectly. I mean, there's a way to write it, there's a way to speak it, you know, without
absolutely
being offensive. you know?
And if you don't mind me saying so, Kathy, you're very good at the reason these interviews work so well is that you allow people to speak, and you listen. Some people don't listen, you know, they will allow somebody to speak, but they're not listening, they're looking, you know, I can sense from you that you listen to people and you give them the space, if you like, in which to speak. And that's a quality. I don't know whether that's a natural quality that you have. I suspect it is, but it's a good quality to have, I think. And, you know, funny enough, White Feather made a lovely humorous comment a few weeks ago. We did a trance evening, and Amanda always sits next to me when we do these trance evenings, and he always calls her Sunflower. A lot of people know that now. That's his name for her.
And just so you guys know, Amanda is his wife.
Yeah, I ought to say that, yeah. Amanda's my lovely wife. We've been together 20 years now. Anyway, she will field the questions from members of the audience who raise their hand, and she'll go, that gentleman at the back there, and whatever. And at the end of the evening, White Feather thanked her for her work, and he said to her, "You've been like a very good referee at a football match. You've let the game flow. You've let the occasion flow," which she does very well. She doesn't keep interrupting, or she lets White Feather speak, lets people take in what he's saying. Occasionally she will, as you would, intersect with a question that's relevant, you know, and that's good as well. But I thought that was a lovely thing for him to say, you know, that you allow it to happen. And funny, you know, in printing, going back to printing, when we were designing brochures and things, people wanted to fill every area of the page. You've got this beautiful white, pristine page, and they want to fill every part of it with a picture or wording. And we used to say, no, it's the space that matters. And you know, when you have a piece of music, Kathy, the notes are important, but it's the space between the notes. It's the lines, the space on which the notes are written. That's what matters. That's what creates the music as much as every note that's played. It's the space between them. And that's a gift in itself.
Wow. I like how you said that, you know. You know, I will tell you this. As far as the interviews and the group, you know, being a referee, because sometimes I feel like I'm a referee, you know, and it's not easy being that, but wanting everybody to express their truth and their views. But with the interviews, I definitely, with your interview, for example, the first one I did, I was researching. I had to get all my notes together. I had to know what I was talking about. At the same time back then, I barely knew what I was talking about. So I think I've gotten better at it. But with this type of interview, it's a little bit different because I didn't have to research anything. I could just think of anything and we could have a conversation. Really, it's more conversation. Yeah. But even with what we were talking about, you're making me think deeper. You're making me think, wow, you know, really, I mean, I could be super busy, but I have to be more present in the now. And I love to think that we are all one. We're just experiencing things differently.
Absolutely.
You know? So, wow.
There's a point I wanted to get across in this interview, Kathy, as well, which is bringing this back to, this whole thing back to mediumship and trance mediumship. And I want to put this point across because it was something that was given to me about 2 years ago now by Spirit. And I, at the time, I embraced it fully because I knew exactly what they were getting at. And I wanted to get this across because I know there's a lot of mediums that sort of take part in this group and watch these videos. And having come up through what I call the old school, if you like, I've been a medium for over 45 years now. There's a great reliance on what our guides give us. Like I've got White Feather, another medium will have a different guide, a different teacher, and we very often like I do, we quote these guys, White Feather said this or Silver Birch said that, and we focus on what the spirit guides give us. But the whole point of development and enlightenment and becoming aware is that we can not exclude these teachers, but we can. I don't think this will come across arrogant or in any way at all, but we can go beyond them, and we can also at least reach their level of awareness. Now, White Feather explained this to me, and this is me quoting White Feather here. Where do these guides get their knowledge from? Where do they get the information from? Are they speaking for the whole of the spirit world? No. Are they speaking for a spiritual group within the spirit world that works with them? Yes. We hope we're diligent enough, aware enough to recognize that they're giving us the truth. What they're saying is right. Where do they get that information from? Is it from their own experience, their own personal experiences? Is it from others within their group? Is it from the spirit world, their environment? Probably a combination of all of these things. But, and this is the key thing, White Feather explained to me that we should not be so focused on our guides that we can't get information ourselves. And the way he explained this to me, and you'll understand what I'm going to say because it's very relevant to today's world. You've heard of cloud computing, where your information on your phone, on your computer is stored in the cloud. And White Feather compared this information, he called it a resonant field. That was his word. He didn't use the word cloud, but I knew what he meant. He compared it to being like cloud computing. And you've got this resonant field, this non-physical field of information from which spirit guides can draw and feed that information down through the consciousness of the medium, whether it be a trance medium or a medium that's at least under some level of control. Now we, as individuals, you, I, everyone, can access that cloud of information. We can link with that resonant field of information ourselves, bypassing the guide, if you like, not necessarily having to go through the guide or the guide come through us, by our own spiritual endeavors, by our own spirituality, by quickening our vibration, we can access that resonant field because we come into a coherent connection with it. This is coming back to what I said about the heart and connecting. We coherently connect with this pool of energy, with this cloud of energy, and we can pull it down, we can draw on it, we can get information. And it's not a question of, oh, I'm too good now, I don't need the guide, I've got it all sussed, I don't need White Feather. Not a question of that at all. You still link with your guide, but you can get your own information. You can do it, Kathy. Anyone that's listening to this can do it if they are attuned to it. If they are attuned to it. And that's what I mean by we shouldn't get so fixated with this guide or that famous personality that's coming through. We should, fine, that's fine, you know, they've got a lot to give us and we're grateful, we're very grateful for it, but we still are spiritual beings ourselves. And just to summarize this, White Feather could look out on a beautiful sunset, a beautiful sunrise with the hills and the sun coming up and the clouds and the birds singing, and he could describe that to me or through me. And many people would say, yeah, that's a beautiful scene. I get that, beautiful. But I could look as well. I could describe the same scene, maybe not in his language, but I'm looking at the same thing that he is. And other people could look at the same thing because we're all one. We're either all one or we're not. If we're all one consciousness, then what any guide can do we can aspire to as well. It doesn't mean we're leaving them behind or we don't need them or they're redundant. It just means that we are evolving ourselves. And this is what I meant when I said at the beginning, self-inquiry, our own ability to connect to information. It's all within us.
Yeah, and wow, I'm so glad you brought that up, and how you said it. I don't think it's arrogant at all, because, you know, these are some questions that I was thinking about, like, okay, how are they getting their information? And do they all have the same information? Do they have access to different layers of information and different levels? And when you said that you can go there yourself, it's not that you're bypassing them, but you're tuning into that area of interest or vibration and understanding to get that information. And you brought it back to the heart. And that's, you know what, I'm sorry, but I love this interview already, because everything you're saying, I'm like, whoa, I can totally understand it.
Yeah.
All for me always comes back to the heart. And some reason for me, that's where I resonate the truth. Like it's something I've read or received.
Yeah.
I feel it right there as truth. But man, okay, I'm sorry.
No, that's beautiful. That's
beautiful. It's beautiful how you've expressed that.
Beautiful. I mean, you're talking about layers as well. That's another point, because you may have heard, I don't know whether you've read different teachings of different spirit guides, but many guides, White Feather included, will speak about reincarnation. Some guides, some teachers will say, no, there's no such thing as reincarnation. And you get this disparity, don't you? Of, well, there either is or there isn't. And White Feather again has been asked this many times, and he explained it, the fact that even in his world, as he calls it, some spirit teachers, as aware as they are, have not got yet a full awareness of reincarnation, so they cannot speak on it. It doesn't mean they are invalid or their words, are invalid. It just means that they cannot speak on it because they have not yet any personal awareness or remembrance of reincarnation. Those that have will speak on it, because a spirit guide, there's certain laws, if you like, that govern what they can bring through, and they cannot tell a lie, and they cannot speak about something which they have no direct knowledge of. And that's why you get this disparity, and it's sort of confusing, really, because it naturally brings up the question, well, is it or isn't it? Is it black or white?
One of them. I've noticed that listening to the different guides, I noticed that there was that. Like, I thought for sure everybody would understand reincarnation, but so let me ask you this, Robert. I've had many, and if you've watched my interview, I've been with the dreams. That's how everything came in for me. I would always have past life dreams, but they would come in very interesting, because I'd always have the person there telling me, after viewing whatever they wanted me to view, I would hear a male voice always say, "Who were you?" And I would know out of all the people that were being played in the scene who I was. And they would say, "What did you come to learn in that life?" And I would say maybe pride. And how does pride now affect you in this life that you're living? And I know exactly at that moment what I was expressing or putting out there. But I've seen so many lives, not that and this was given to me, I think through dreams or meditation, to not even question if there was reincarnation. But it also made me think, though, because I would see other things happening at the same time. If there's no time and past lives were, reincarnation was, can we be living different lives on the space-time continuum at the same time in the moment of now? And in my dreams, I've seen that, and I'm like, wow, Yeah.
I mean, the way that's a beautiful question. I mean, the way that it was described to me was that, to use the analogy of a CD or a DVD, everything is there. The whole of our past, present, future, everything is all on that DVD. And when we come into this level of mind sort of starts playing that DVD in a linear time, and it unravels depending where we are in the program or in the film. We see this particular life or that particular life, and it unravels and plays in the way that it's meant to, just as you would put a DVD into a DVD player and it would play at that speed and it would all make sense sequentially. But if you take the DVD out of the player, it's all still there, the whole thing, even lives that you have yet to recognize or live, if you like.
Yes.
You know, it's still there. Your future lives have already been played out. You know, and this is a very complex thing, and people don't understand. I won't say they don't understand it. They understand the analogy, but they can't quite get their head around it. And I think it comes back to what we said about levels. At one level, yes, there is no time. It's all continual. Everything that's ever happened or will ever happen has happened at that level. At this level of mind and of space and time and linear, it's playing out far differently, you know. I mean, I'll throw this at you for what it's worth. There is no time. Time is a construct of the mind. Once the mind steps out of this level, time disappears. There's no time when you're asleep. Where's time then? Everything's, you know, when you know, time is not the same for everyone. Time is not the same. You know yourself, you've experienced different facets of time, waiting for a bus that never turns up. It seems like a lifetime. You're having a good time. You're excited. You're watching a football match or a show, or you're engaged with someone, you know, that you're very enamored with, and time flies. Where's the time go? So, you know, the time isn't fixed. It isn't relative. It's only the way that the mind perceives it. I mean, again, I know I'm quoting White Feather a lot tonight, but he's likened this to he likens it to a dragonfly, and a dragonfly may hatch and live for a day, one day, its entire life in a day, and to us, it's just a day that goes by. To that dragonfly, it's an entire life. And we look and we think, wow, you know, I wouldn't like to be a dragonfly. He only lives for a day. That must be terrible. But of course, for the dragonfly, the consciousness, the mind experiencing through that is every bit as long as our 70 or 80 or 90 or 100 years is to us. Because it's mind operating at a different way through a different vehicle. And it's the way that the mind plays out and perceives time, creates time, if you like. So we shouldn't feel sorry for the dragonfly, because he experiences everything in that life in that single day. It's a fascinating subject, you know.
It is. And, you know, right when you were telling me that, I was thinking, sometimes I'll be sitting there trying to think about the time. And then all of a sudden, my daughter will come in and say, Mom, it's time to go. We have to go to school. And I'm like, so I can never, it's such a deep,
yeah,
you know, thing to try to even think about. But yeah, it's amazing.
Well, I mean, you know, we've been talking now for an hour and 20 minutes. I mean, where's that gone?
I know.
It seems like 15 minutes, 20 minutes.
It's so cool. You know what, Robert? I love this conversation, because really it's a conversation. And I mean, right now my spirit feels so high, because I feel like anybody that watches this, they're just going to think more. They're going to try to be more present. I mean, we've touched on so many different subjects, but there are so many subjects.
Endless, yeah.
Endless. I would love, and I know I might be putting you on the spot right now, but I would love to do more of these with you and just talk and have these conversations, and maybe have the members ask, you know, hey, next time, can you talk about this? I mean, hopefully we'll know what that is, but would you be interested in doing more?
Yeah, certainly would. Yeah, that'd be a lovely idea. And I think the idea of getting people to to put some questions forward, that's great. Yeah, I'm up for that. Yeah, that'd be good.
Oh my God. Oh my God. This is the best interview. Oh my God. I love it. You actually made my day. And the evening for you there. But okay, so I want to go back really quick. I want to talk about you guys connecting with Robert. So remember, he has his website, whitefeather.org.uk. So much information, which will also bring you to all his links, which is podcast, buzzsprout.com, and it's Rob Goodwin.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. You can find it on Apple iTunes as well as Stitcher, or you share it through Stitcher. Okay.
Yeah, and it's also on the website as well. I always put the podcast on the website as well, as I do these interviews as well.
Okay, perfect. And then his YouTube channel, that's under Robert Goodwin, I believe.
Yeah, yeah.
Books. Check out all his books. You can see them on Amazon. You can go to his webpage, which is the whitefeather.org.uk. Look there as well. My God, wait, there's one more thing I forgot to mention. We shared this all the time in the group, and Robert has a PDF file on trance mediumship, right? It's a free one to put out. Can they get that from the website? Website?
I think it's on the page. There's a page called About Rob or something, just a little bit about me. I think it's on that page.
So I'll share that again, but you can.
Yeah, it's just a free download. Just click on it and it'll download to your computer.
Yeah, very, very beautiful. But oh my God, thank you, Robert, for being here. I had a wonderful time.
Me too.
And I can't wait to do this again. And you have a great evening.
You have a good day as well. I've enjoyed it. Take care, Kathy. God bless. Bye-bye.